Alright guys, so in there we've got bearings that control steering, or not control it, you control it, but they allow it. Hear that squeaking? Well, you can't feel, but I can when I ride it. There's a tight spot. And I actually broke my collarbone once, not on this bike, but many years ago, because of the same problem. I landed a jump and I couldn't correct like I should have, just because of the tiniest bit of resistance, which makes all the difference in the world when you're doing things high performance. So we're going to take this off. Notice I've already popped these. I was hoping I wouldn't have to pull the bars, but as you can see, there's no way that nut's coming off with this bar in the way, so you'll need to get to this. I've never done this before, but my goal is to take apart as little as possible and do it quick. I've got the part. Let's see how it goes. Alright, so it would seem that the next step is going to be to get over here, loosen up these triple clamp bolts. In order to tilt the bars out of the way, I had to take a little bit more apart than I planned. I might wind up having to take just everything off the bars, we'll see. But once those triple clamps are loose, you can't just slide this down. There's another nut under here we're still going to have to get to. But you can see that these are ready to wiggle their way off. It takes two hands and I'm holding the phone. So I'm going to have to put the phone down, wiggle that off. And that brings us to here. So this will be next. And now I can see that when this all drops away, probably going to have all of these cables, everything detached. I don't know. It's got a, you know what? It's got enough play. I'll probably just leave it on. What's gonna stick to it? I'm gonna have to cut that off the number plate. That's probably about it. I think I might get away with leaving most of it assembled. So the next thing I'm gonna do is take this off, but I had to do some thinking about what's gonna happen. Well, I don't want this whole thing to go fall and give me problems. So notice it's on the ground now because I shimmed up the back. And handy dandy convenient trick is that triple clamp does happen to make the perfect block to get it there. And I thought I was going to need a special tool looking by the shape of this thing. And then I reached on to see how tight it was and did this. And as I turn that, I can see that space there increasing. So it is, in fact, going to here. So you see now, this is one of the bearings that's probably bad, and this whole thing is loose. And if I pull this block out of the back, oh, yeah, that's what I thought would happen. See, the front end fell away.
Yep.
Right.
Front end's almost falling out.
Almost off. Probably gonna need some help on that. So this bearing, well, I don't know. It don't look terrible. They really don't look that bad. Look, shine get the camera down and take a look inside of there. What's it look like? Well, one thing for sure I didn't prepare for is that we're gonna need some bearing grease, because definitely gonna have to grease this puppy. All right, back up. I'm gonna see if I can do the next step. You know what? Actually, this bearing might be bad. See, see this motion right here? That movement? Oh yeah, look at that. Click, 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 click. There shouldn't be any motion there. This should be tight. This should be tight. I'll show you when we open the new one, the difference. Put this over here in the oil pile so I will grease the floor more. And then I'm gonna try to lift the bike away from this by my damn self. Probably not gonna be able to do it. I'm probably gonna have to hang up that camera and help. Yep. Yeah, go ahead and hit stop. You know, we probably should, before we take it apart, I do want to show this. Hold this in frame. There, go. There, Joe. Thanks. And then look at, well, turn this torch on. You because we need light. So see this motion here? That way. That's probably bad. And the grease is all sticky. Oh, this bearing doesn't even want to turn. So this is probably where the problem is. Where the problem was. Look at all the dirt in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to get this baby out of there. Back off so people can see where we are on the bike. See where that is? Alright, and so we're going to figure out how to drop that away and get that bearing out and get the new one in there. Now this darn thing is turning out to be quite difficult. Quite difficult. If I get under here and pry up on it, it just doesn't move. I can see that this outer part, it's just thin metal, and then there's a real hard, strong piece of hardened steel in there. And it looks like this shaft here is bigger. It gets bigger as it goes down, and this has been pounded on, I'm assuming. And I just can't get it off. So I'm gonna try something crazy here. I'm gonna try cutting the outer bearing apart and see if I get a pipe wrench on the part underneath and spin it off. I can't think what else to do. Well, despite my best efforts to minimize how much I had to tear down, I wound up having to pull this triple clamp off because that darn bearing is just bloody impossible to get to. Well, I mean, I can get to it, but I can't get it off. So I'm going to have to come up with some creative techniques. And if worse comes to worse, I'm going to have to go talk to the shop about how they can get it off for me at a charge. But I'm hoping to not have to do that. Alright, so I figured out how to do it. Flipping the triple clamps over like this. And I'll show you from directly overhead so you see that it's slightly leaning towards the man in the flannel. And that allows me to get this angle. And since I'm holding the camera, I can't hammer and show you. But, you know, bang, bang, right? No need to show that, but here's what happens. Look at the spacing. It's starting to come away, right? And so then you come to this side, and you can't do the same thing because of this big old lip in the way. So I was able to just bang my screwdriver in there and gap that side a little more. I'm pretty sure I only got to get to about here and it'll just pop right off because it's fatter up here than it is down here. Okay, and for all you non-believers, let's take these nuts and stuff. I put this on there just to protect the threads, guys. And the other one, I don't know why I put it on there. Just so I don't lose it, I guess. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I'm one of those people who puts everything back. So like I took the handlebars off from the triple clamp, and you see I put the tops back on the triple clamp, and you know, I just reassemble everything instead of putting things in buckets. Anyway, this is the finally removed bearing, and I actually managed to break the corner of it off in the process of taking it off, but I did not screw up that shaft very badly. You know, it's okay, but it gets a little scratching here because really the bearing sits all the way down there, and that's the only contact surface once it gets all the way down. So now we just got to figure out how to get the new bearing down. Shouldn't be too hard. We just get a pipe.
Yeah.
We get a pipe that fits over this and just bang the pipe down.
Yep.
No, instead of banging on the bearing. So I have to just find the right size pipe.
Yep.
So our replacement part will be this convenient kit from All Balls Bearings, All Balls Racing. My local mechanic, who I really like, Wheels in Motion, their service department there, has always been super duper fair with me. Like if they give me a quote and then they get into the work and they find out it's more work than they thought, they'll usually just honor the quote and stick to it and get it done. They recommended this kit. So these bearing races are a bear to get out. And I seen one man job on the internet with like sticking something through here and patterning it out. But what I discovered is it cannot be done. What you need to do, see down there, you can see the lip. I'm going to take this and get it on the lip. And then Joe, take the camera. And actually back up so you can just see my hands. I'm going to reach underneath and I got to get this. Come over here, get the camera from this angle. Yeah, I gotta get this and hold that on the lip in there, and then Joe, come back up. And then I'm gonna have a second person keep this handle against the side, because both my hands are busy right now, so I can't swing the hammer. So Joe, push that against the side there, just like that, and then now I can finally. And you gotta just do that on all four corners, and you will eventually be able to get these. See, it's coming out. It's coming out. But it's a bear. Okay, so that's what you're gonna have to do. It takes, in my opinion, it can't be done without two people or special tools. Okay, so with enough of that hellish, oh come on light, I just cannot seem to get the light in the right place. There it is. Finally, it pops out, finally. And then the fun part's gonna be popping the new one back in. So I have a plan. I'm gonna use this as my setter. I put the new one in, and then I put this against it, my old one, and beat on my old one to push the new one in. Plan. All right, for those of you who don't already know, these babies, these races that are in here, they can be a real bear to get out, especially if anybody's ever made the mistake of like putting in the wrong size one, like somebody I know did. This is the bottom one, which is slightly larger, and we pounded it in there so good. So how do you get that out? Well, a lot of guys are coming at it from the other side at an angle, but that can be really tough. So what I figured out is that if you get the exact right size socket, right, come from underneath, and that'll line up, bada bing, and you just hammer it out. So that happens to be, in this case, a 30 millimeter socket, impact style. But since it's probably not universal, you need an outside diameter, according to my micrometer, of about 42 millimeters outside diameter, and that'll line up perfectly with the inside of this ring, but it'll still fit inside of there and not pass through, and you should be able to pound it out. Let's see if it works. That was easy. Now we're going to show you guys how to put the bearing, the new bearing, on the steering stem, which is the part that sticks up out of the triple clamp. And what you're looking at here is the wrong bearing. If you see it stop this high and you have to push it at this point, you're using the wrong one. If it goes this far without being forced, then you have the right one. That other shot showed how it was pretty high up. That's the bearing that goes to the top. You're going to use that in the top of the neck. Don't try to pound it on the bottom, because, man, it's going to be bad. Trust me. So I'm going to say this again, because if you get it wrong, you're going to be so upset with yourself. This picture is showing the right bearing. When you slide it down, this is how far it'll go without any force. Just kind of hand shove it, and it'll make it that far. That other picture, the prior picture, that was the bearing that goes in the other position. You don't want to put it here. So that's the don't do that picture. This is the do that picture. Are we clear? Okay, good. All right, so putting the bearing back onto the triple clamp steering stem here. Do not forget the seal thing. I highly recommend that you size it up, check it up with the bike to make sure that you have the right one before you do this, because once you get this on here, you really can't get it back off without damaging it. So make sure you put it that way, the skinny end up. And if you try to put this bearing on and it only slides to about here-ish, then you're using the wrong one. The way you know you have the right one, when I pull this up, it's already stuck, man. Jeez, I can't believe that. It's already stuck on. Well, when it's up here at the top, it'll be loose. And the reason is it gets bigger at the bottom. If it's tight at the top and you feel like it fits correctly, well, that is the one that actually goes on the top. It's not going to be the one you put on first. It's the one you put on last. All right, guys, so slide that bearing down to the bottom. Make sure you put that seal dealy on there and that the cup side is facing up. Like it looks like it could hold, you know, a few ounces, not a few ounces, half an ounce of water in there, like a little cup. If you put it the other way, you'll see there's no cup, and then you know you're upside down. And the rubber will just rub against that. This way it's nice and smooth, right? This bearing's not going to go all the way down without a special tool called PVC pipe. This is 1 inch. Put it on there like that. And then you get this other special tool called a hammer. And you hammer it, and it will go down. All right, easy peasy. Bearing's all the way down. It's all the way greased. So is that one. And I'm actually gonna put this back on the forks before I put it in here, but I'm just gonna assemble it first real quick to make sure everything looks good. Because I don't want to get the forks all the way back together only to find out that I screwed something up in here. So yeah, let's just snug this up and get a feel for it and see if it works. Yeah, it turned out not to be so hard. Once I got that on there, you just kind of tilt the bike side to side, and you can get that baby in there like this. And here, I'll let you watch me put it in.
So I cut the audio out of this one so I could talk over it while you guys watch me try to fight this. It's not the way to do it. Okay, I should have done what I initially thought I wanted to do, but I was like, well, this looks easy. I'll just try to do what I'm doing in this video unsuccessfully. It's stupid me, right? But what I should have done was just take that nut back off and pull the triple clamp back down and go stick it on the forks, just like I took it apart. That's the order I took it apart, and it's way easier to put it back together that way. Trust me. You put it back on, a little bit of tapping, and then with the whole fork assembly, you slide it up in there, maybe with some help, and put the nut on, and you're done. Instead of the moron way that I try to do it. It's very difficult, but if you get stuck doing it this way, you can make everything nice and loose so it wiggles back and forth, and use a little tapping, scooting method that takes forever. And you can get it back on this way, and I did get it back on this way, but it wasn't fun. So don't do it this way.
All right. So that was actually more difficult than I thought to get that in there. Don't put the triple clamp on top on. Leaving that off, you can push this on with the triple clamp in, but it would have been probably a lot easier to put the triple clamp on the forks with the forks off the bike, not installing this first like I showed you. My plan had been to put it on the forks and then slide everything up in. And I didn't like the way it turned out, the way I did it. It was just too challenging, but it's still doable. Anyway, it just so happens that this nut here, the socket that you need to take this nut off, is probably the correct size for when you want to pound out those old raceways that are in there. And you'll notice a problem when you go to do that. If you try to slide it in from either side when they're both in place, you won't be able to get it in. So what you can do, I didn't wind up having to do it, but I had thought of a solution I'll share with you. Go down a size on the socket so that it'll fit in there. And then once you get it in place, use a clamp to hold it against one wall, and then pound on it. And then you have to move it to the other side and clamp it to that other wall. All right, so this is a job well done. No squeak. I took it around the block to get a good feel. It rides just amazing. a whole different bike. And of course, gotta make sure it runs right.